We're welcoming back Ted Savransky, professional sports bettor from Vegas, and we're talking today about the NCAA basketball future odds, the adjustments that have been made, any trends that are kind of starting to flow and pick up some steam. It's very interesting. There's been a lot of teams that have shifted as far as who was favored, who wasn't, and there's a lot of teams. There's a couple, two as a matter of fact, undefeated teams anxious to see where they're at, and one of them isn't even ranked highly, if ranked at all. So we're going to talk with Ted and get his feelings and bring up the teams like Kansas and so forth, Michigan State, who may be overvalued and who may be undervalued. So Ted, first of all, welcome back, and if you will, kind of break this down and give us some ideas, some long shots, and who you might think might be a dark horse and so forth.
Sure. I mean, I do most of my betting in Las Vegas via my phone apps. You know, I've got phone apps for half a dozen different sports books in town. And I'm not in the casinos every day the way I used to be. But at least once a week, I like to go around town, look at the future book odds at various sports books and go from book to book and get some numbers and kind of get a feel for it. And that's what I did yesterday. I went out and got a bunch of college basketball odds around town. And the odds that I'm going to use for the purposes of this video today are going to come from the Westgate Superbook. And the reason I chose those is because at number one, they have the most teams listed. And number two, there are sports books in town that will absolutely rape you when it comes to odds and giving true odds on these type of future book wagers. The Westgate Superbook is not one of those books, one of the most well-respected books for wise guys in town. So I'm going to quote specifically from Westgate numbers, but remember, for all of these discussions, the lines can vary, often dramatically, from sportsbook to sportsbook based on their own individual liabilities. But in terms of general trends, you talked about the undefeated teams. Well, let's see. There's two left. SMU can't play for the national title. And South Carolina, you know what bettors have done here in Vegas with the Gamecocks and their 15-0 start? A collective yawn. South Carolina opened 200-1. They're currently 100-1.
Oh, wow.
The sharp money has not shown for the Gamecocks. And a lot of that disrespect for South Carolina's strength of schedule thus far, the market's expecting that once South Carolina starts to face a tougher slate of opponents than they faced in early season play, that they're going to get some comeuppance. So not a lot of love for South Carolina. Of course, SMU, the other undefeated team, heck, they can't play in the tournament this year. So they're not taking any action in the future books. They're off the board.
Yeah. Shame on Larry Brown on that one. Yes, South Carolina.
Come on. Really? Don't. If there's ever anything where the NCAA is giving somebody sanctions, you can the way you start the assumption is the NCAA is wrong, the NCAA is screwing somebody, the NCAA doesn't like somebody, not, the coach or the player did something wrong.
Yeah.
This is all the NCAA and their individual axes to grind with nobody in that organization having any accountability to anybody but themselves.
Yeah.
It's not Larry Brown. The NCAA sucks.
Yeah, no doubt. It's just amazing how that paper follows them, though. And also South Carolina, Ted. I love this coach Martin. You know, he was at Kansas State. I just like what he brings. I like his oomph. You know, he's the kind of guy. I played some basketball, and I would have loved to have played for him. And I think that is why, because their strength of schedule, obviously, they haven't at all faced the competition that others have. But their consistency, though, is coming from the fact, and I believe this, that his team is buying what he's selling, and that discipline is there, and he's teaching them how to win. So I just think years to come, this team might be something to look at as his recruiting gets stronger, which I think it will.
I'm with you 100%. And Frank Martin, for me, is that, he's not a nice man. Anyone that hangs out with Frank Martin will tell you this guy is a tough SOB.
And I can see that, yeah.
And he's had issues everywhere he's been in terms of anger management and, really getting into his players. But I'll tell you this, Frank Martin's a heck of a college basketball coach. And the players that are willing to submit to his system will gain benefits from it. And I'm with you on the Gamecocks as a program on the rise.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like some Bobby Knight comparisons, even though as far as quality and wins, nowhere near it. But I see a lot of that same attitude with him and so forth. And it takes that player that'll buy in, that'll absolutely just take whatever, abuse he's got to verbally and, and mentally to get to that point. But when it works, it works. And hell, when it doesn't, it doesn't. What are your thoughts on Kentucky, who in the beginning, I believe they were like favored coming out? What are your thoughts, Ted, on this Kentucky team and what Calipari's got to work with right now and the underperformance?
And another reason why I like to use the odds from the Westgate as opposed to some of the other books. A lot of books once they start taking money, they'll adjust the teams they're taking money on down, but they won't make any adjustments on anybody else to go up. So the odds get progressively worse as the season goes on. That's not the case at the Westgate. And Kentucky, which was one of the favorites to open up the season at 10-1, well, guess what? Now they're 15-1. They have not taken a ton of Kentucky money in the future book, and it's easy to understand why. Yeah. All the quotes coming from John Calipari's mouth are like, look, this year's team isn't as good as last year's team or the team or the year before. And we've seen Kentucky struggle away from home. We've seen them without the same level of swagger that they've had in recent seasons. And I think that carries over. I do not look at Kentucky, certainly from a talent perspective, they're as talented as any team in college basketball. But this team doesn't have the same feel as the last two Kentucky teams did, both of whom played for a title. And I can understand why the odds have been dropping on the Wildcats.
Yeah. And with Iowa State taking that hit and that big loss, obviously they're not going to be big in the talk. I mean, maybe for a long shot or something like that. But anytime you're talking about future odds, whether it's beginning, mid, or late season, Michigan State and Kansas are usually going to be involved in those conversations, as you're well aware, Ted. Any thoughts as to those two programs and what you think maybe they're capable of doing here as we're, getting into the stretch of excitement in college basketball?
Well, you can make a case that Michigan State and Kansas are the two teams that certainly the Westgate has the most liability on, because we've seen the odds on those two teams drop significantly. Kansas opened 15-1. They're currently the betting favorites, 6-1. No team with lower odds than the Jayhawks. So they've taken a ton of money thus far. Last night's loss at West Virginia notwithstanding, and I don't disagree with that. And from a talent perspective, again, Kansas is right there with anybody in the country, and they deserve to be one of the favorites. We talk about who's got a chance to win the title on the first Monday of April. And Michigan State opened 40-1. They're down to 8-1 at the Westgate. That's a huge move. In fact, it's the biggest move down of any team that I saw, other than some real long shots. We saw Valpo go from 300-1 to 80-1 or that sort of thing. But Sparty has taken significant money here in Las Vegas. And, based on the first half of their season, you can understand why Michigan State, too, has the feel of a team that's likely to be in the chase for a long, long time come March.
Now, Ted, there's the last one I wanted to talk to you before I ask you about a long shot that you think are a dark horse. But there's a team that 2 weeks in, I made my prediction. I put a very small amount with a friend. I didn't do anything on the futures, and that's Oklahoma. And this is a team that not a lot of people really understand. That 4 of their starters have played every game. They started together for 3 straight seasons. If that's not the model of consistency and cohesiveness, then I don't know what is. And Lon Kruger, he's brought 4 teams to the dance, and I just really like his coaching style. I liked it when he was at Florida. Buddy Hield, Ryan Spangler, Woodson, Cousins, the 4 of them, they are all showing up and they're putting up. And I see them getting stronger as the year goes on. And I'm not currently up to date with what the odds are on Oklahoma, and I'm hoping you have that answer for me. But I wanted to know your thoughts. And do you think that this team has what it takes because of that veteran leadership right now to take this thing all the way and win it?
Of course, I live in Las Vegas, and since Jerry Tarkanian left the Runnin' Rebels program back in 1992, they basically had one good run.
Yeah.
Who'd that run come under? Lon Kruger.
Yep.
You know it. A couple of tournaments, even a Sweet 16, a couple of Sweet 16s under Kruger, and they haven't had any success with any other head coach except for Kruger, either before he got here or since he left to take the Sooners' job. Oklahoma has taken a lot of money. They opened 30-1. They're sitting at 12-1 right now at the Westgate. So they've taken, a fair bit of money. You're a Buddy Hield fan. I'm not. And really, that's what it comes down to. I know that he's a guy that has attracted a lot of media attention. I don't know that he's a guy that's going to lead a team to a title. And so I like the Sooners. I don't love the Sooners, and I don't look at them as being necessarily Final Four caliber team. And of course, the only squads that I'm interested in making a future book wager on are teams that I expect to reach the Final Four. So I'm not perhaps quite as bullish on Oklahoma as you are. I don't hate the team by any stretch of the imagination. They're good. They're very good. I just don't know if they can be great in March.
Okay, yep, and that's your opinion, and I totally respect that. How about a long shot, a dark horse, or someone that maybe no one's even thinking about right now as we wrap this up, Ted?
You know, I mean, you start to look at some of the maybe a team out of the Pac-12 that stands out to me. Cal at 100-1. You know, that's a really good team that we see for the Bears that Mike Montgomery's put together for Cal. And I look at Cal as being a team that may offer some value. They opened 300-1 down to 100-1. That's, you know, when we're talking about long shots,
Yeah.
you know, it's not always easy to find live long shots. Providence maybe a team. You know, they've got a superstar, and when you have an elite player and you play a little bit of defense, you can go a long, long way. But really, when we're talking about long shots, in the last 25 years of college basketball, there have only been 2 legitimate long shots to win a title, and they're both the same team, UConn.
Yeah.
You know, UConn did it when they beat Butler, and they did it, was it 2 years ago when they knocked off Kentucky?
Yeah, Kentucky. Yep.
Yeah, that's it. When you talk about teams seeded, they were seeded higher than number 3 in the tournament bracket. So whenever I'm considering a future wager for college basketball, I like to look exclusively at teams that I think can come away with a 3 seed or higher. Because again, the recent history of college hoops is that once you start getting the longer shots, unless it's UConn, you don't cash a whole lot of tickets.
There you go. And Ted, you taught me this too, and this plays right into reasoning of what you just said. Numbers don't lie, so you're absolutely right. And Providence was one of mine that I was thinking about. So when you mentioned that, I kind of chuckled because I agree, you know, and when you do have a superstar like that, that has the capability to throw that team on its back, anything can happen. Well, listen, Ted, thanks again for being back and breaking this down with us on the NCAA basketball future odds. Have a great evening. I wish you luck tonight in Vegas and look forward to having you back tomorrow.